Welcome to There Is Only One Truth, Self-Dev. We are two odd-age punk rockers. Me, Tommy, a Taoist and seeker, and some other guy. He's a personal development coach and creator of the world's first self-help virtual coaching program. My mentor, Tony, that bastard. This podcast is about success, spirituality, and bettering yourself. That's the best way to change the world. And with continued listening, that's what you will do.
Tommy, you're a great guy. I love you. But there's a but.
What's that?
Do you have the right beliefs?
Right beliefs?
The right
There
beliefs.
are no right beliefs.
Oh, really? How individualistic of you. How dare you even?
Right. I see where you're going with this.
Oh, you do, huh? You're so smart.
Mm-hmm.
And there are right
Yeah.
beliefs, right? Now, there is a current social code, right? Which is prevalent not just here in America, but throughout the West. Well, Lee, I don't know about South America, but certainly North America and Europe. And probably more pervasive than that.
I think it's even permeating the whole world at this point. Because it's like internet.
Virus. Are we talking about COVID-19 or something else?
Yeah, we're definitely talking about something else. It's worse than COVID, I think.
Or something similar. That there's a lot in common, quite frankly. Now,
Disease of the mind.
social mores are nothing new. Indeed, they, along with customs and culture, go part and parcel with all societies and tribes and ethnicities and nations. That they're part of it. However, there is a new social code that is the dominant one. And it's fueled by a punishment, if not an ostracism, being ostracized. I was trying to say ostracization.
Ostracization? Yeah.
Ostracized, which means, you'll be excluded, even punished economically, if you don't have the right beliefs.
Canceled.
You don't want to be canceled. Oof.
I know.
Yeah. Who has the right to cancel anyone? And can anyone truly be canceled? I think the line of this canceling is I think there's so many problems today that are deliberately made by media and or with social media that don't really exist. They're make-believe problems. Like they'll say that, like this cancel culture. Who could cancel you? Even if you and a million of your friends don't like me, who fucking cares?
It's that new social code. It's that new social perception, that shift, that cancels you. And it's that hypersensitivity towards anything that's, perceived as aggressive or individualistic, like you said.
Well, my point about being canceled is, what do I care if you want to cancel me? Now, if there's a boycott, that's an economic punishment. That's something to be fought, or dealt with one way or another. But I'm contending, and this is a total organic point here. The best. We don't rehearse this stuff. We rehearse little to none of this stuff, viewers. These are improvised conversations. Is that you really can't be canceled. No one has the right to cancel you. So they're doing it wrongly? No, they're not doing it at all. I'm contending. So if a million people line up to say that Tony Petroza is bad, well, okay, fine. Maybe I can get a million more to tell them to go fuck themselves. Who cares? You don't like me. You don't like what I'm saying. Who cares? Why should I care what you think about me, especially when you are countering my beliefs or actions? Maybe I should counter your beliefs or actions. Who's the right one? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Are you so certain that you got the right one? Well, undoubtedly you are. Well, certain enough to make such an outlandish statement that I'm to be condemned because I don't share the right beliefs with you, which is to say that I'm not in agreement with you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a dissenting opinion, or heaven forbid, a counter opinion, one that's in opposition to yours. Ooh, oh my God! How dare I have such thoughts of my own? And this is the social code: is that there is a right thinking, which of course is patently ridiculous. It's absurd. There is no right thinking. Now there are things. For example, there are things that was more of the that the world has a history of, that we've evolved past. Like, for example, racism, which any decent person would have to admit that racism is, I'm not going to say obsolete, because I'm not going to pretend that I condone it in any way, because I certainly don't. But there was a time that it was pervasive, racism. Tommy, did I lose you? I lost Tommy. Where is Tommy? I'm going to pause it for a second. So this new social code purports that there is a right beliefs or set of beliefs, and if someone doesn't have them, that they should be punished, which is it's rather draconian. Yes, there are social mores, but there is supposed to be a certain thing in America and in the West that's supposed to develop and evolve more, called freedom and liberty.
Yeah.
Which is
This ties in a lot with our last podcast about it being offended.
Absolutely, and that is the way, and that is the primary way, well, a primary way that this is perpetuated. If someone is offended, then that's supposed to be your prompt to either be silent, okay, right? So that if you're silent, or then you can't offend me, or even better, change your beliefs to match to match mine. When your beliefs match mine, oh, you're enlightened. Oh, by the way, I'm saving it for a future podcast, but there's a thing called woke. Have you heard this thing called woke?
Yeah, of course.
Here's my proclamation on this thing called woke. Woke is a joke. All right. If there is a political ideology, there is no waking to it. There's either you subscribe to a political ideology or you don't. There's no waking. Waking is about realizing your own true nature and the true nature of reality. Has nothing to do with politics. So if anyone says you jump through this hoop or these hoops, you're woke, that's just a bunch of bullshit. Erroneous bullshit. It has nothing to do with awakening. Awakening is understanding yourself, being humble, knowing your own strengths and weaknesses. That's awakening. Awakening has nothing to do with politics. And
woke is just slang that was they stole that from the African American community in the they used to use that in the 60s, I believe, during civil rights it started. And the far left adopted it, and they're using it now for whatever purposes they're using it for.
Okay, well, I want to avoid using any political terms to make any sort of polarity. So I wanted to articulate that. But that's news to me what you said about where it started, because again, I contend that in terms of awakening or being woke, there's no politics. It has nothing to do with politics at all. It has to do with realizing your true nature and the true nature of reality. All right, and here's
two totally separate things.
The news, absolutely. They're vinegar and oil. They're oil and water, I should say. I'm not talking about salad dressing here. Is that awakening is about realizing that you are both good and bad, and the more you feed the good part, the more good you can contribute into the world. And the more you feed the bad part, the more bad you will contribute to the world, because you're always bad and good, which is to say you always have a choice, right? You're never woke. You're never in any position of superiority, whether it is quote unquote woke or any other such bullshit. It's just total fiction. I mean, it is outright, utter fiction, complete fiction. So the way that this social code, I mentioned how it's done through being offended. And by the way, if you haven't heard, Tommy mentioned it, our last podcast 15, we go into being offended and the nature of being offended and how it's a weapon and it's
used for control.
It's often not even sincere. Right, it's used for control, exactly. Now, the way that this social code is also perpetuated is through a thing called intolerance, which is incredible because, you know, it's been widely known for the longest time, many years. I mean, at least a century, that the way of progress, the way of evolution is to be tolerant of others who are different than you. Right?
Resilient too.
Say what?
Resilience. To be resilient, you know.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you kind of jumping the gun there, but let's hold that thought about resilience, because that's a very powerful topic and point per se. Hold that. Right. But when you're intolerant, first of all, you got to understand about intolerance. A lot of people today say, "Oh, I'm intolerant about the right things." There's no such thing as being intolerant of the right things. There's only one kind of intolerance. Okay. Now you could contend that you're intolerant of criminals and criminality, and I would be on your side. But it's still the same thing. Is that you're not tolerating another. Now, that said, one's rights end where another's begin. So if I'm infringing on your rights, criminally or otherwise, well, then you are absolutely more than entitled. You should defend yourself and stop my encroachment, whether it be criminality or some other infringement upon rights, because I've went too far. But when it comes to ideas, what's the infringement? Am I entitled to my ideas? Put it this way: if I'm not entitled to my ideas, then you're not entitled to yours. All right? Why
double standard?
Why do people have this idea that their ideas are more right or righteous or correct or dominant than others? Well, certainly they did that that's done through collectivizing. They found commiseration. I'm agreeing with others, so now we have numbers. We have strength in numbers. Absolutely, the mob mentality is critical in this. Okay, but what is at the core of it? The core of it is nothing but self-righteousness. That's at the very core. That's what it is. It's this new social code, this new way of behaving is nothing but the manifestation of self-righteousness, which is, I'm right. I don't even have to prove that I'm right. I'm just right. My ideas are right. Therefore, if I'm right and you disagree with me, or I disagree with you, then you must be wrong. You disagree with my ideas, then you also must be wrong. So you're either bad, okay, because you disagree with me, and because I'm so good, right? I have my ideas because I'm good, or you're really stupid because you're not smart enough to realize how smart I am or how intelligent my beliefs are, right? Right. So
it's a nightmare.
It has everything to do with self-aggrandizing, right? And through collectivizing with numbers, you get the mob mentality, which is where they get their strength. There's always strength in numbers, right? Then that's also, you get a validation. Oh wow, we agree on the same thing, even though maybe I'm just copying and I have no original thought. Oh, well, then we must both be right. Oh, there's a third person and a fourth. Look how right we are. Oh, now let's wear the minority. Where's the minority that we can that disagrees with us? And now we can focus our animosity towards them because why? Because we have the power. Imagine if that they didn't have the power. Imagine that they were.
What about this? Not to cut you off, but how about this? Where's the minority that we could put in front of us to lead this this self-righteousness? You know what I mean? Like where's the minority that identifies with us that we could use as the spearhead for this type of thinking and behavior?
Are you saying exploiting a certain group?
Yes,
So that
exactly.
they can have more of a validation
Yeah.
or supposed legitimacy or credibility?
Yeah, like, oh, what if we get them to come with us? Look at they might have been able to argue with us because of this situation, but if we get that one over there to side with us, there's no way they can say anything. You know what I mean?
Well, they certainly they strive for that. However, I think that with this new social code, which has a totem, a hierarchy of victimization, is that all these identities of so-called minorities are are all disqualified and delegitimized once they break the ideology. And if you can be one of these victim classes, so-called, but if you don't profess the right ideology, you are targeted just as well as anyone else. So you've got to buy into the ideology, and this this self-righteousness and this harm, this polarity, this is nothing but a polarity where it's always us versus them. Who's us? Us is the one who's ascribed to a certain ideology. Who's them? Those who don't. Those who don't. So it's a constant polarity, a constant conflict, a constant us versus them. It's always there's never unity ever with this ideology, with this social code. It's always us versus them. There's always more that we have to assimilate into this mentality. It's like the Borg. Us, we must assimilate. You will be assimilated into what? Into the right thinking. Which thinking? The thinking that I've got, of course, dummy. Don't you know how smart I am? Don't you know how enlightened I am? Which is, of course, it's the opposite of enlightenment and intelligence. Intelligence is part of intelligence is certainly. I don't think I'm very smart. I know a lot of people are much smarter than me. And indeed, my company,
I'm one of them.
You are. Indeed, in my company, that when I start stepping out, I'm going to be hiring people who are a lot smarter than me. Hey, I'm still in charge, so I got enough brain cells to do that. But you want to do that. But intelligence is knowing. The primary quality of intelligence is learning from your mistakes. That's the primary quality of intelligence. If you're not doing that, you're not intelligent. However, there's all sorts of kinds of intelligences. They said there's 8 different kinds of intelligence. For example, athletic intelligence, or spatial intelligence, or mathematical intelligence. But there are other intelligences. Is a basic one is an academic intelligence. All right. As opposed to just maybe having what they call street smarts, or even common sense, which is not so common anymore. I think that certainly is a common sense, which is a basic logic. But nowadays, it seems that the thing that that's supposed to be common sense, which is a basic logic, has been replaced by this new social code. That you've got to buy into it at a basic level, and if you don't, you either unintelligent, as I said, stupid, or you're bad, right? You've got the wrong beliefs making you bad.
You're ostracized.
Right. It has to do with this desire to assimilate, to become to dominate. But one of the things they'll say is, oh no, we like, for example, they might say, oh, we're tolerant against the right people. I mentioned criminals, that we should be intolerant of criminals, but we also should be decent, right? Now, and if people are intolerant of another ideology, they should also be decent. For example, people might say, "Oh, I'm intolerant of Nazis," and fascists.
Mm.
And that's the right people to be intolerant against. And I contend that no, it's the same thing. But yeah, I mean, I concur totally that fascism and Nazism are bad. And I also say there are lots of other things that are bad too. Self-righteousness, even worse. What do you think Nazis and fascists are? They're just self-righteous people that didn't tolerate anyone who didn't dissent. Just like you, who are not tolerant against them. So now we got two intolerant people, the Nazi fascists and you. So the same exact mentality, except you're on this side and they're on that side. Right? It's the same.
And he's not saying you, the listener, even though it might sound that way.
So
He's saying you.
I agree that that extreme ideology is wrong, but I also agree that, or contend that if you went into their shoes, you might understand them, and that is the essence of empathizing and with others and understanding them is spending some time in their shoes, looking through their eyes, getting out of the first person perspective and seeing through the other's eyes, or now that said, I agree that fascism and this ideology is incorrect, but there are many things incorrect. Your self-righteousness is the worst incorrectness, is the worst, because when you are self-righteous, you can do no wrong. And I got news for you, neighbor, you do a lot of wrong. You're as fallible as anyone else, and that is a big reason why you should not be intolerant of Nazis and fascists, as it were, unless they're declaring themselves Nazis and fascists. And even then, it's gray area because of what I'm talking about. It's better to understand than to claim your domination and your correctness. And that is that you could be mistaken. I've seen these many stories of people coming out against against so-called fascists and Nazis, and turns out those people weren't Nazis or fascists at all. So they were mistaken. They were mistaken. They were fallible. So now they're oppressing not the Nazis or fascists they said they were. They were people who weren't, but it still felt their harm, their destruction because of what? Their self-righteousness. So self-righteousness just leads to more mistakes. You're not right. When you're self-righteous, you couldn't be more wrong, and you only go to what do? You just commit more wrongs. More when you harm others, you're wrong. In self-defense, you're not wrong, but in proactively, aggressively, you are wrong. So the thing is
cyclical.
So that's right. So you want to avoid self-righteousness, and because you'll just make you're going to make more mistakes. You're wrong to be self-righteous. You have to understand about why people believe that they do things they do, and it has everything to do with how they were brought up. For example, if I was brought up like you, the person listening, and I would most probably have the same, if not the exactly same beliefs that you do. If you were brought up like I was, you have the same, almost exact same beliefs that I do. So to deny others their own personage that's about as fascist as you can be, right? That's what you talk about, or a communist, and to use those political terms, and we want to avoid such politicization, because this is about philosophy and spirituality and bettering the self. You want to avoid judgment of others. You want to avoid condemnation of others. Because when you do that, you just judge and condemn yourself, right? Yes, you want to defend the innocent. Yes, you want to protect against offense, criminality, and people who harm. Absolutely. But you want to avoid those things I mentioned. And what's the solution? The solution is, quite frankly, is to doubt yourself. Now, I'm always talking about being confident, often. And yes, you should be confident in most instances. But when it comes to judging others, and at least, that you're not going to have a relationship with, that you have to interact and depend on, which is a very important situation to judge them as accurately as you can, if you want to interact with them on a way where there's a dependency. You want to doubt yourself if you're making a negative judgment of them, because you could be wrong. You could be wrong. Don't ever doubt your own fallibility, because we're always fallible. Now, there are times where you might have to say, well, I have to act with confidence. No, that's true. Sometimes you will have to do that, and it may be, and the consequences may be awful. But that's sometimes that happens in life. And
but you're saying if you're about to criticize someone or judge them in a certain way, doubt it first.
Right,
Say, I could be coming from a place of totally, informed.
You could be
ill-informed.
wrong. You may not know everything it is to make an accurate judgment or to come to a correct conclusion. And at what cost? Are you God that you should delve out all these punishments at whims because bad, good, bad. When they have such consequences, God wouldn't do that. God is much more omniscient. God's omniscient. You're not. So one way is to doubt yourself, and the other part is just to let others be. You be who you are. You absolutely have the absolute right and prerogative to collectivize and associate who you want to, and not with others who you don't. Absolutely, that's completely your prerogative. But when you make yourself an echo chamber and create a bubble for yourself, that is detrimental. When you don't have an exchange of ideas, especially conflicting ideas, then that adds to your self-righteousness. So I would caution that. But is to let others be who they are. You be who you are, and just how you want to be who you are. Give others the same courtesy. Give them, the golden rule is to do to others as you want to be treated, which is great. But the platinum rules is do unto others as they want to be treated. Okay, but either way, gold and platinum, let people be themselves.
I love it.
And that's my shtick on the social codes and the intolerance that is behind so much of it, which of course is fueled by nothing but self-righteousness. That's all it is. And if you think it's not self-righteousness, then go ahead and go into the other person's perspective. All right, and that is not to say you pretending to be the other person, but really see things through their eyes. All right, where do they come from? What are the influences on them? What are they trying to accomplish? Truly, not in a way that you're looking to condemn them, but what are they truly wanting to do? Then you can understand them, and you can see that giving them much more latitude is most probably the case.
It's heavy stuff, man. Very important too. Very relative.
I think that it's very important in society to be civil.
100%.
And to be tolerant. The more intolerant we are, the more conflict we create in society and amongst people and amongst individuals. So that's not the way to go. The way to go is to being civil and to be tolerant. And I'm rather infamous for that. And I'm very glad, because I strive to be. People are like, how could you be friends with, especially on social media, how can you be friends with him or her? I'm like, because I let them be who they are. And not only that, I know that whatever they say is whatever they say. Same thing with me. That there's nothing to do with being right or wrong. That's just what I say is what I say. Am I right or wrong? I'm neither, and I'm both. Just like you. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm just a person, and you're just a person. You have absolutely no certainty of being right. I'm telling you, if you can get one fucking thing from this podcast, it's this: you have absolutely no certainty to be correct, none whatsoever, none. So give yourself, they say that to give someone the doubt, give yourself the doubt when you're judging others in a way that condemns them. All right. All right, Tom, you want to get into your corner?
Sure. I'll go into it. I wanted to first talk about something that Darren. Darren.
Our group on Facebook is a place we started a group which is for community and interaction. And Darren is our best poster. He's been starting some great conversations. So I invite you, the listener or the viewer, you can do it on YouTube, but Facebook is even more conducive to conversation because people tend to interact there. But go on, please, Tommy.
Yeah, though Darren made a post about how his cat, or his I don't know if it was a cat or a dog, but his pet takes on a lot of the same. It mirrors the same emotions that he's having,
Oh,
and I thought that was very true, because most animals, I believe all of them, are hypersensitive towards certain vibrations in the environment, and I think
hypersensitivity in a good way. You know, we talked about hypersensitivity in a bad way. Where
yeah,
a person
we're going the other way.
can't tolerate others' ideas. Here's where a person is sensitive to your feelings, your real feelings, not the ones
Yes.
you think others have, but the ones they actually have. Well, firstly, you got to understand that feelings are contagious. All right. And, you know, I'm a practitioner of NLP. One of the ways what we do, when I want someone to have a feeling, what I do is I have that feeling first, and sooner or later they're going to have that feeling. That's something that comes from something called mirror neurons, where
Yeah.
you know, there is an exchange of these quote unquote molecules of feelings, and that's not limited to humans by any means. As you said, cats and dogs, especially those creatures, and that's the primary reason why they are humans' number one pets, because
Yeah.
they're so intuitive, they're so synchronized with us that having relationships with them is perfectly natural and organic, because they sense us, and when we're troubled and they console us, or just, you know, or even, you know, rub up on us or whatever, seem to understand there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, that's great.
There's nothing like having someone be there for you when you're feeling troubled or sad, right? I mean, that's one of the greatest things there is.
Yeah. I think that since we've evolved from just being instinctual beings, now this is total theory on my part, but this is, I believe it's true, is that human beings have gone deeper into our analytical mind and further away from our empathetic selves, and our, you know, our ability to be sensitive to certain vibrations in our environment. And I mean, because we're the only species that needs to practice being aware through meditation. You know, it's like every other animal is there in the zone, aware, and they're not thinking. But
Well, I agree with you, so at least to a certain extent.
mm-hmm.
Uh, and well, meditation is becoming aware on a meta level. We
Yeah.
become aware through our senses. Well, first of all, we have 5 senses, how we perceive the world, but we also have 5 internal representations, how we can think using those senses internally. And now when you meditate, you go beyond that. You want to go beyond those internal representations to a level of abstraction, which is above that, where it's
Mm-hmm.
just like an experience that supersedes that. And that's invaluable. And that part is not logical. That part is a letting go, that you do that by letting go, you know.
Yeah.
And so you
Right.
leave logic, and you leave your own physical awareness. But that's the gateway. You do that, you stop having thoughts about the past and the future, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
focus on the present, right, through your internal representations. And with such a focus on that, you stop. You have less and less focus of the past and present, that you can transcend the present. Losing focus on the past and the future, that you
Right.
transcend the present by going to an abstract experience of meta feelings of meditation, which is like, it's like a non-experience where you experience it, but it's not like a human experience, right? It's like out of
Yeah.
body, or right, out of body, it's non-human. And
It's foreign. Yeah.
yeah, so but there you're looking to be neither logical nor empathetic or feeling, but to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
beyond that, right? But coming
Exactly.
back into, and I think that, and the more we do that, the more empathetic we can become when we get back to our body, and
Yeah.
and sense others' feelings, and be mindful of that and cognizant of that. That said, there's a caveat. You don't really want to be too empathetic, because that's dangerous. It can even cause you to be sick, be stressed and be sick, and even have disease. And indeed, having chronic negative feelings is well known to be a major component of disease.
You don't want to be a sponge for everybody else's negative emotions.
Right. Or even, I mean, you want to be happy, sure, but you don't want to be manic. You don't want to be bipolar. You want to have an even keel, right?
Yeah.
But we need to have a balance. Life really requires a balance to have an optimal life, which is, you want to be logical, but not too logical. You want to be feeling, but not too feeling.
Like, the further we got away from instinct as humans, right, and we became these thinking machines, I think, like, the less empathetic we've become. And even like humans that are even further along in that process would be people on the spectrum, people that have autism. This is another part of my theory, because, you know, these individuals can memorize a phone book, but they can't drive a car, or they don't realize social cues. They don't connect on that level. So they're even more like a computer than we've become.
Yes,
you know?
They are. In one sense, they are. I totally concur. In another sense, they don't subscribe typically to the social code, right? Which the typical human does.
Of course not.
Because of that, they're not constrained by it, and they're able to express themselves more honestly and individualistically. What I've often contended is that's the great battle that everyone has, is that, is the battle to resist being assimilated by society, which is society. I talked about this, that people want to, the society, the person as part of the whole wants to assimilate you. That's nothing necessarily new. Society always wants to do that, but I think that it's more of a it's less of a social one and more of a political monstrosity. Okay, so it's less of a culture and more of a political thing, and it's the person's mandate to resist that and to honestly express themselves individually about who they are and what do they want to do with themselves in the world. Right? As opposed to being assimilated to another cog in the wheel, spouting the right opinion, spouting the right set of beliefs, giving up themselves, giving up their perceptions and their own geniuses, their own peculiar and particular geniuses, because society pushed it out of them. So I hear you, man. I agree with you to an extent that balance is the key. Balance is always the key. I mean, even everything in moderation is the old cliche. It's true. Everything in moderation.
What would you say to someone that was like, I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit. That's like, I am myself, and I'm totally in touch with my individuality, but all of these things that the social code is pressing and all this, I really do identify with that, and it is truly me,
Okay, great.
And like,
that's great.
Be like, you don't even realize you're brainwashed.
Well, that's excellent for you. That's excellent for you. You do you. You can have as much of the social code as you want. That is your prerogative. However, it is not for you to attempt to instill that into me.
Exactly.
Right? You're more than entitled to do you as much as you want to. You're absolutely entitled to not just to be you, to be whoever you want to be, whoever you say you want to be. That is your prerogative. But it's not for you to instill anything upon me. That is where you've gone too far. You've got
walking on thin ice. The fear that exists.
Right. You went too far. You bit off more than you could chew. You thought that you were something more than you are.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
That's the ego. That's a mistake of the ego. The ego is a self-identity. And when you think you're something more than you are, or someone more than who you are, that's just a mistake of the ego. It's went beyond the self-identity and went into an erroneous part of this self-identity, or a fictional part of this false self-identity. Even though it all may be fiction, but if you can build your self-identity with accuracy based on your own strengths and weaknesses, right, and your own historical truth as opposed to historical fiction, right, then you've got a good self-ego, a healthy self-ego. But if you're you're adding fiction, you're adding things, you're embellishing. We'll call it embellishing. Then you went too far, right? You are totally entitled to be you, but you're not entitled to take the imprint of you and place it on me.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Tony. You're Tommy, and you, listener or viewer, you're you.
Yep.
We talk about here something that we think is worth talking about. You may like some or all of it or none of it. That's your prerogative.
So, you want me to go into the Tao Te Ching, or do you want to do the passage?
I'll do the passage. How are we doing on time? We got rid of the time this morning because we had a bit of a false start.
I think we've been going probably about a half hour, maybe a little more.
I think we should keep up with the Tao Te Ching. I think we should not be doing that. But I'll read my passage. I'll go into the box, right, of Achieve Your Dreams. Go into the box and pick out an arbitrary written passage. And let me get some light on the subject here and read what it says. It says, everything is sweetened by risk. Oh, yeah. And it's by Alexander Smith. Everything is sweetened by risk. Oh, man. Risk is really one of the greatest things in life. Some of my favorite sayings is no risk, no reward.
Yeah.
And every reward is completely proportional to its preceding risk. So if you want something, you must make the prerequisite risk. Otherwise, you cannot have it. It's impossible to have it. So if you want to be this, well, what's the risk? The risk that makes this possible. That's the risk you must make. All right. And so not only is it necessary in achievement, it's also, as Alexander Smith said, it makes life sweeter, right? And that it changes life from banal to something of interest. As a matter of fact, perfect segue here. I'm an actor, trained actor, and I was at a great acting school, a renowned acting school. And my first mentor was George Morrison, who introduced me to neuro-linguistic programming. This is 1995. But my other primary teacher was Mike Nichols, the great director who died like about 5 years ago. Matter of fact, his movie, The Graduate, was the movie that made me want to become an actor more than any other movie. Anyway, I was in it was a 2-year school, and I was in the first year, and when he came in for a scene study once a week, and and the audience would always be packed with the maximum student body, because Mike Nichols is the man. You spend any time with Mike Nichols, you had no doubt why they paid him the big bucks. He was just fantastic. And the first year students were not allowed to speak. Only the second year students could raise their hands and talk, and they're the ones putting on scenes too. Not the first year students. We're just there to observe. So doing the scene, Mike would always pause and interact with the actors on stage and the student body in the seats. And Mike stopped and he turned and he engaged the students and he said, well, what makes a person interesting? Okay, that became the organic topic there. Now, I had an inclination of what this answer was because I thought about myself. I'm like, well, what makes me interesting? I thought that I was an interesting person, but I'm saying to myself, well, what makes me interesting? And I'm like, okay, I have an idea what the answer is, but I'm a first year student. I'm not supposed to raise my hand. So I'm like this. I was having this conflict about, okay, I want to break the rule Okay, and maybe, and you also, when you know, in that situation, you know, you want to make an answer only if you're certain you're right. Or if you think you're going to be wrong or be disrespected, you don't raise your hand. Like, no, that's not a very common circumstance, right? But Mike Nichols is really pronounced and confirmed. The great director, you know, who's worked with all the bigs and made such great movies. Anyway, so I was wrestling and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna raise it, say it anyway. But nobody would say anything because of this, what I just described. No one even. But I was about to break through the rule, you know, because I'm very mindful of rules. People think I'm I'm a maverick and a rebel, and there's a part of me that is, but I'm very mindful of rules. One of the reasons is, well, I'm certainly respectful because I'm respectful and considerate, even though I've been evolving my whole life, is that, you know, learn the rules so you can break them properly is one of the great truths I follow. I want to break rules, but only after I've learned them, then I can break the rules.
I want to break rules.
I want to break rules. You don't want to be a bull in a china shop, right?
Yeah.
That's ogreish. You want to be, you want to have precision, you want to have elegance, you want to have artistry. Right? So anyway, so I had this ambivalence, so I was breaking through, and then Mike gave the answer. And do you want to guess what the answer is, Tommy?
Was it the same one you were going to say in the class?
Yes, it was exactly what
it wasn't.
And what do you think?
How to be yourself? I don't know.
What makes a person interesting?
Being themselves.
Nope, they take risks. Well, even though that you're right, it's risky to be yourself, but that's one specific thing. But in general, so you're right. You're right. You're in the right vein, but you're not hitting the bullseye. The bullseye is they take risks, whether it be to be themselves truly and honestly, or to go for some reward or whatever the goal or motive is. They take risks, which means they might fail. You might fail. If you might fail in some endeavor and you're going for it, that means you're taking a risk. Okay? Yeah. Romance, whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And that's what makes a person interesting, because they have the wherewithal to take the risk, as opposed to those who are constrained by the fear, or worse, become cowards and won't take the risk because they fear failing. They fear
judgment.
That's the big fear, judgment, they fear scrutiny. But fear of failure is at the core most often. Could be anything.
Fear of reprimand. Fear of failure.
He's alluding to one of our a Dag Nasty song, which is a favorite song of Tommy and I's.
Man.
So taking a risk, not only is the gateway, is the necessary prerequisite to achieving anything, but it sweetens life, but it also makes you interesting. So take risks, my friend.
Yeah.
Take risks. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's great, and it sweetens life. So as is my custom, burn it in. I'm going to burn the paper. You can see I have writing in the back, Tommy. Who knows what it is? It's getting burned up.
Quite a bit too.
Quite a bit. Well, I sacrifice it for the podcast. All right.
Oh man.
Burn it into your minds, listeners, viewers. I put it into the can. Let it finish burning. Into the tin, as it were. And that's all I got. Now, Tommy, are you going to read the Tao Te Ching today, or are you going to?
I will read it. I will. I'm gonna go ahead and we'll close it with that.
Yes.
All right. So this is the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, chapter 16. Empty yourself of everything. Let the mind rest at peace. The 10,000 things rise and fall while the self watches their return. They grow and flourish and then return to the source. Returning to the source is stillness, which is the way of nature. The way of nature is unchanging. Knowing constancy is insight. Not knowing constancy leads to despair. Knowing constancy, the mind is open. With an open mind, you will be open-hearted. Being open-hearted, you will act royally. Being royal, you will attain the divine. Being divine, you will be at one with the Tao. Being at one with the Tao is eternal. And though the body dies, the Tao will never pass away.
Wow. There's like so much there, it's hard to even dissect that or even
Yeah.
pick any part of it. It seems like it's like such a giant hole.
It's
Right? That it's like where can I begin to address that? It seems difficult. It's
poetry. It's wisdom poetry, man.
yeah, I think it is. It's art, but it's spiritual art.
Yeah.
It's art.
I'm all about this. I'm a poet myself, and I love spiritual things, and I love stuff that's just, you know, unattainable, or you know, it's not tangible. It's, you know, it's just, it's hard to nail down.
And you know, I don't even want to dissect that. I think it was wonderful as it was written.
Abstract. That's what I meant to say. I love abstract things.
And there's an abstract element to those words, where that's the place to dwell. You don't need any paraphrasing from me, or any sort of dissection. I'm going to listen to those words again, and I'm going to dwell in the abstract and the gestalt of it, the oneness of it, the wholeness of it, because that's where it's at. About being constant, about being open to the wonderment of it all. You know, that's where it's at. You know, not these little pieces of it, these fractions of it. So that's perfect as it was. Great reading. Thank you to Lao Tzu for writing it 2,500 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Great stuff. All right, Tommy, we've come to the end of another awesome podcast, I think.
Yeah.
Viewer, you let us know what you think. Please make a comment. We really want to hear from you. And if you don't want to do it on YouTube, go to the Facebook, because the group, because we're having conversations with listeners and viewers, and we love it. Tommy, I love you, bro. Great stuff.
Good stuff. Love you too.
Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe, like, and share this with like-minded people. Stick with us. We will continue to improve and persist. You can do it with us.